Have you ever wondered what happens after death and what Jesus really thinks about forgiveness? What if your daughter's killer was in heaven? In today's video, you'll hear a true and shocking story about a woman who died, met Jesus, and had a revelation no one had ever told her. Like, subscribe to the channel, and comment here which city you're watching from. This story needs to be heard. My name is Linda Patterson. I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and when my heart stopped, I had 61 years old. It was an ordinary morning, but what came next was anything but ordinary. On the outside, I was a strong woman, a retired teacher and mother of 3. But on the inside, I was broken since the day I lost my youngest daughter, Emily, brutally murdered at the age of 17. It was a rainy night, and she was returning from the movies with friends. She never made it home. A man, a complete stranger, kidnapped her in the parking lot. She tried to run away. He stabbed her 6 times. He was 24 years old. His name was Jared Whitmore. I will never forget that name. In that courtroom, I heard the details of what he did. I looked into his eyes and wished he would burn in hell for all eternity. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. But that was never enough. For years, everyone around me told me that I needed forgive, which was what God wanted. But how? How do you forgive someone who destroyed your world? I went to church. I smiled. I repeated the right words. But at night, my heart was a battlefield. I imagined hell as a cell of fire, and in it, I saw Jared burning. That gave me peace. Or at least, I thought it did. But hate is a silent poison. It settles in your body like a disease. Little by little, it consumed me. The morning of my death, I woke up with a pain in my chest. I didn't think it was serious. I made coffee, read my devotional, looked at Emily's photo on the bookshelf. She had that sweet smile, wearing her blue graduation gown, and suddenly, everything went black. I fell to the kitchen floor, mug still in hand. The pain was excruciating, as if something was trying to rip my chest apart from the inside. My husband found me minutes later, but I was already gone, clinically dead. But what happened after that is something no one ever told me could happen. It's something churches avoid. Something that changes everything you think you know about justice, heaven, and forgiveness. Because on the other side, Jesus showed me the truth about the man who killed my daughter. And nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I saw. When the pain disappeared, it was as if I had left my body like someone dropping a heavy suitcase. Suddenly, everything went silent. But it wasn't the silence of a hospital. It was something deeper, a living emptiness, as if time had stopped to breathe. It was then that I realized I was no longer in the kitchen, or in Tulsa, or anywhere I could understand with the mind I had in life. He stood in a vast, endless field covered in tall grass that moved like waves even without wind. The sky above was golden, not like a sunset, but like a light coming from within him, pulsing, almost conscious. And at the center of it all, I felt loved. Not that a Sunday faith that repeats itself in memorized words, but an overwhelming, all-encompassing presence that penetrated my being, exposing every dark corner of my soul, and yet it wouldn't turn me away. On the contrary, he welcomed me. I saw figures in the distance, walking, floating. I couldn't see their faces, but I felt a connection with each of them, as if they were threads of the same tapestry. And then, from the midst of the light, a form emerged. It was him, Jesus, but he wasn't how I imagined him from the church's stained glass windows. He didn't have a shining white robe or a golden crown. He looked like simple beige clothes, bare feet, calloused hands, but the eyes, my God, those eyes, they were like 2 worlds. When he looked at me, I didn't see judgment. I saw true, and I saw that he knew exactly who I was. Everything I had hidden even from myself. He didn't say welcome or you died. He just walked up to me and spoke in a voice that didn't come out of his mouth, but from the air, from the ground, from my own chest. Beautiful. There's something you need to see. Before I could ask what it was, the field began to transform. The golden flowers disappeared, and before me appeared a river, but it wasn't water. It was made of liquid light, shimmering, full of hues that don't exist on Earth. And on the other side, I saw a figure, Era Emily. She was standing on the opposite bank, wearing a simple white dress, and the same girlish smile on her face. My knees gave out. I fell, crying, screaming your name. She waved, she smiled brighter, as if to say, "I'm fine, Mommy." I wanted to cross over. I wanted to touch her, hold her, and never let her go. But then, I saw another figure appear beside her, tall, young, messy brown hair. I froze, because I would recognize that face anywhere. Jared, the man who killed my daughter. I was in heaven, beside her. For a moment, the world around me seemed to crumble. I couldn't understand what my eyes, or my soul, were seeing. Jared Whitmore, the man who destroyed my life, the man who stabbed my daughter to death in an empty parking lot. It was there, standing next to Emily, in the sky. My mind screamed, "It can't be. It can't be." Everything inside me was burning like a wildfire out of control. That scene was impossible, insulting. It was as if someone had painted a monster with light paints. I turned to Jesus. The words stuck in my throat like sharp stones. "What is that?" The question came out in a choked whisper. "Why is he here?" My voice shook with a mixture of pain, anger, and sheer disbelief. Jesus looked at me, not with disapproval, but with deep pain, for everything I still carried. Then he said, "You see him as he was, but I see him as he has become." Those words struck like silent thunder on the golden field, but I didn't want to hear it. I couldn't accept it. I started screaming, crying, shaking. He killed my daughter. The pain, which I thought had been buried for years, exploded with full force. "You show me paradise, and then you force me to see it here. Is this heaven? Is this justice?" I was collapsing, but then Emily took a step forward. She looked at me with the same eyes that looked at me from bed when I was a child and said, "Good night." And she spoke, "Mommy, it's okay. I forgave him." These words hit me like a bolt of lightning. My ethereal body staggered. Emily, my sweet girl, had pardoned his own murderer. And then Jesus spoke again, but now, with a voice as firm as stone, yet filled with compassion. 5 years after the trial, Jared fell to his knees in his cell. He cried for hours. He shouted my name. He gave himself to me, and I accepted it. It was like hearing a nightmare being told as a miracle. "No, it's not fair." My voice was weak now. What about the pain he caused? What about what he took from me? Jesus approached. He placed his hand on the center of my chest, and when he did, I felt a weight I hadn't even known I was carrying. It was like a cold stone inside me, hard, black, alive, hate. You kept it inside you, Linda, more than anything else, more than Emily's memory, more than hope. You carried it like a burden, while I cleansed it with my grace. It was then that I realized Jared was not the same anymore, and maybe neither do I. But that was just the beginning of what Jesus wanted to show me. I was on my knees in that golden field, breathing as if the air itself had weight. His name, Jared, still throbbed inside my mind like an open wound. But there, before Jesus, there was nowhere to hide, no excuses, no masks, just truth. And then he spoke again. "Linda, you want justice, but what heaven offers is something greater, redemption." Those words cut me to the core, because the cruelest part, it was that, deep down, part of me wanted Jared to suffer. I wanted him to burn, not for justice, but for revenge. And in that moment, I saw it with brutal clarity. Jesus stretched out his hand, and before us, the field disappeared. In its place, a room appeared, immense, made of translucent light. It was not an earthly court. It was something taller, the court of the soul. In absolute silence, scenes began to emerge around us, floating in the air, like memories being projected into eternity. The first scene, the crime, the night Jared attacked my daughter, but not as shown at trial. Now I saw his eyes. He was shaking. He was crying. He was beside himself. He was a broken, drugged, disoriented young man. Yes, guilty, but more than that, lost. And even in that horrible moment, I saw something in his face that I had never noticed in the press photos. Panic. He didn't plan to kill anyone, but he killed. The second scene, the prison, Jared alone in his cell, 5 years after the crime, sitting on the cold floor, mumbling to the void. And then he began to pray, not as one who repeats words, but like who screamed for help of the soul. "God, I killed someone. I destroyed a family. I don't deserve to live, but if there is still forgiveness, take me, cleanse me, kill me, or save me. At that moment, the cell was invaded by a soft light, and I knew Jesus was there, in prison, with him, as it was with me now. I stood up slowly, still dazed. The court has disappeared. The golden field has returned. The river of light shone brighter, and on the other side, Jared looked at me, but not with pride, with tears. He fell to his knees, and even without sound, I felt what he said, "Forgive me." And that's when I realized that court was not for him, it was for me. Jesus looked at me with infinite tenderness. "You have carried this judgment for too long, my daughter, but there is only one judge here, and I already forgave him." The question that loomed now was not, does he deserve it? But yes, do you want to be free? On earth, I thought the only prisoner in history was Jared, sentenced to life imprisonment, without freedom, without a future. But there, before Jesus, with the golden field expanding around me like a breathing heart, the truth fell like a divine sentence. I was the one who was trapped. The cell had no iron bars, no cold walls, but it was made of something much more dangerous, hatred disguised as justice. I always told myself that I couldn't forgive, because forgiving would be like betraying Emily's memory, that my anger was the last connection I had to her. But in that moment, standing before Jesus, I realized my grief had been hijacked by bitterness. I remembered more of the pain than the love, more about the murder than the wonderful life my daughter had. And then Jesus came near again. He reached out and lightly touched the center of my chest. At that moment, I felt something stir inside me, like a curled-up, wounded animal that had been asleep for years. It was the hatred. He had form. It was like a dark knot made of thorns and iron, alive, pulsing. Jesus said in a firm voice, "That's not protection, Linda. It's a prison, and you have the key." I started crying again, uncontrollably, but they were different tears. It wasn't just sadness. They were shameful. Because there, in that place where only truth exists, I saw how much I had allowed Jared's evil top-plant roots within me. My earthly body had grown old with this pain. My smiles were fake, my hugs contained, my faith contaminated. And then I heard Emily's voice, clear, crystalline, like an ancient melody I recognized from old dreams. "Mommy, loving me isn't hating him, it's about freeing yourself." I looked up, and I saw the two of them side by side on the other side of the river of light. Emily, so full of peace it hurt just to look at her. Jared, broken, yes, humble, but washed by something I couldn't understand. Grace. It was then that Jesus said to me, "Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is not to justify. It's opening the door to the cell you locked yourself, and leave." My hands started to shake. The light around me pulsed like a giant heart waiting for an answer. And then, for the first time since that damn phone call that changed my life, I considered forgiving, in truth. But how do you forgive the unforgivable? That was the question that was hammering at me. And Jesus, looking into my eyes, answered me without words. He showed me. I never imagined that heaven would bring me to the edge of what seemed like a spiritual precipice. Forgive Jared. Forgive the man who took my daughter's life. Everything inside me screamed, no. Mazalie, in that eternal field, where every thought has weight and every emotion vibrates in the air, the no began to crumble. Jesus remained by my side. I didn't press, didn't demand, just, I was waiting. And then, he spoke, with that voice that comes not from the ears but from the depths of the soul. You think that by forgiving yourself, you are betraying your daughter, but what your daughter wants is to see you free. My legs gave way. I fell to my knees on the golden floor, and the light that had once gently enveloped me now seemed to be waiting, pulsing around me like an entire universe contained in the palm of God. I closed my eyes. I saw Emily's face when I was a child. I saw her dancing in the kitchen with a wooden spoon as a microphone. I saw your notes scrawled with, "I love you, Mommy." And then, I saw Jared's face, not the killer's face, but the face of a lost boy who had transformed. A broken man who had been rescued by a mercy that I said I believed, but I never understood until that moment. Jesus knelt beside me. It didn't touch my skin, but it did something much deeper. something no human being had ever achieved. Forgiveness is choosing truth over pain. It is to say, the pain existed, but she doesn't control me anymore. My mouth started moving before I even realized it. First, a whisper, I forgive. It was like swallowing glass, but also like taking the first sip of water after crossing an entire desert. He said again, I forgive. And then, like a river dammed for years, the words came from within. Jared, I don't understand. I don't think it's fair, but I choose, forgive you. The instant the words came out, I felt the impact. The stone inside my chest broke. It didn't come apart gently. She exploded. The knot of thorns, the hatred, the resentment, all of it disintegrated like dust before an explosion of light that was born from within me. I screamed, not of pain, but of relief, as if heaven itself was heaving a millennia-old sigh at my release. And then, something unbelievable happened. Across the river, Jared fell to his knees. Emily put her hand on his shoulder, and they both smiled. But this time, it was a smile that included me. Jesus stood up and looked at me with a love that no human language could describe. You opened the cell, Linda. Now, you are free. For the first time since my daughter's death, I felt whole. I felt alive, even though I had died. But heaven wasn't finished with me yet, because now, it was time to meet her again. Jesus reached out his hand to me, and this time, I didn't hesitate. When I touched your palm, I felt no skin. I felt peace. A peace that seemed to have form, density, color. It passed through my body like a warm wave passes through the sea. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, was on the other side of the river, on the side where he was, Emily, my daughter, my girl, the reason for so many prayers, the name I screamed on the worst days of my life. She ran to me as if she had never left us, like I was still 10 years old, walking down the stairs of our house barefoot, asking for cereal. But now, she was light with form, a soul in its fullness. She hugged me, not with the arms, but with everything she was, and I felt her smell. I'm not kidding. The smell of strawberry shampoo, mixed with the cheap perfume she loved to steal from my drawer. The smell of home, the smell of childhood. I collapsed. I cried like a mother who had the impossible, the chance to hold your child again. Emily, my whisper came out between sobs. I missed you so much. You can't imagine what it was like to live without you. She smiled, that smile, and he answered, in a voice that sounded like ancient music. I've never been far away, Mom. You who moved away from yourself. These words, they didn't hurt me. They cured me. I saw you drowning in pain. I saw your sleepless nights, your prayers in anger. And I also saw, when you started coming back, when you chose to forgive. She touched my face. That's what brought me to you now. I wanted to ask 1,000 things. I wanted to know what heaven was like, who she was with, what she did all the time. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that she was alive, more alive than ever. And in that moment I realized the truth that hell tries to hide. Love never dies. The pain screams, but love resists. And in the end, he is the one who wins. We sat together in the golden field, hand in hand, in silence. No words were needed. There, between dimensions, between eternity and time, between pain and healing, I got my daughter back, and I knew, with every cell of my soul, that she had never left. Emily was still holding my hand when Jesus approached again, but this time, something was different. The light around him seemed more intense, as if each ray carried unspoken words, infinite meanings. He didn't walk, Heflowed, as if the universe itself was moving with every step. I got up. Emily stood beside me, serene, and Jesus looked at us both with an expression that mixed joy, pain, and mission. He reached out his hand and, with a simple gesture, the golden field opened before us like a living book. In the air, images began to appear, but now it wasn't Jared. Neither does crime. Not the door. It was the world, the real world. On Earth, I saw faces, thousands, perhaps millions, people of all ages, from all corners. And in every face, an invisible prison, currents of hatred, hurt, resentment, parents and children separated by years of silence, brothers who no longer spoke to each other, People destroying themselves inside because of things they were never able to release. Some prayed, but with locked hearts. Jesus looked me straight in the eyes and said, "They think they are protecting the memory of those they love, but they are only killing themselves." Slowly, I recognized that pain because she had been my pain. He continued, "Forgiveness is not a gift for those who have done wrong. It is the rescue of the soul of the one who was hurt. It is the secret code of liberation." The images have changed. Now I saw churches, temples full, people singing, praying, preaching, but within many, I saw the same knot of thorns that I carried. Same words I said, "I forgive," but inside, closed chains. Jesus turned to me with the most intense expression I have ever seen in a being. "You have known the pain of loss, and now he has known the power of liberation. You saw that the justice of men is small, but my righteousness rebuilds even what was destroyed." He paused, and then he said the phrase that echoed throughout the sky. "Now, you need to tell." I frowned. "Tell? Tell what?" He smiled, and in his smile there was eternal purpose. "The world needs to know that forgiveness is not weak. It is the most powerful force there is. They need to hear from someone who lived it, of whom died, whose returned." My heart began to tighten. Emily held my hand tighter. She knew. It was the last lesson, the hardest. I had held my daughter in my arms, but could not stay. And even knowing this, something inside me couldn't resist anymore. I fell at the feet of Jesus, crying, begging, "Please, let me stay. I don't want to go back. I don't want to live without her again." Jesus stooped down. He put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, with a love so strong that it tore me apart, "Linda, you won't live without her. We'll live for her." I clung to my daughter's hand as if that were enough to stop the sky from letting me go. But deep down, I already knew. My time there was over. The golden field around me began to dissolve into particles of light, as if it were saying goodbye to me, not in haste, but with purpose. Jesus stood by my side. And Emily, oh my Emily, she didn't cry. She smiled, a smile full of peace, like someone who knows something that the other person doesn't yet understand. "But what about you?" My voice came out choked, desperate, childish. "How am I going to live now, knowing that you are here and I am there?" Emily put her hand on my face and said, "Mommy, I never left. You who were trapped, in pain. Now that you've let go, you'll feel me closer than ever." I cried, but it was no longer pain. Era clean longing, weightless love, memory without poison. "And Jared?" I asked hesitantly. She looked at him, then at me. "He has a journey. It's not easy, but he was saved, and you were freed." Jesus nodded, and in that moment, a certainty crossed my mind. Heaven is much wider than our limited minds can imagine. There, where time does not exist, I understood something that had previously revolted me. Forgiveness does not erase the pain. He honors love, and it opens the way for God's justice to act where human justice cannot reach. Emily hugged me for the last time, and in that hug, I felt everything I needed to feel throughout my life. Confirmation, peace, release, promise. "I'll wait for you here, Mommy," she whispered. "But now, go. Show them what forgiveness can do." I pulled away reluctantly. I saw her face one last time. She was shining. Jesus looked at me with the most tender eyes in the universe and said, "It's not the end. It's the beginning again." And then, the light exploded. Not like an explosion of destruction, but as a birth. A new world beginning. A new heart. A new mission. And I fell, like a leaf that returns to the ground, carrying within me a secret that the world desperately needs to know. I didn't come back with a light around my head. I didn't come back speaking in the tongues of angels, but something inside me was never the same again. Have you ever heard that time heals? Lie. Time only postpones. Only forgiveness heals. And this is the secret that nobody wants to tell. No one wants to say that heaven is outrageously merciful. May God's grace reach even those we think don't deserve it. Nobody wants to tell you that you may be more trapped than the person who hurt you. Stuck in anger. To Magoa. To the why. No answer. But I saw my daughter's killer in heaven, and I saw what no one else wants to admit. He was forgiven, and I was freed. Do you know what hurts the most to accept? That for years I said I loved God, but rejected the most powerful part of who He is, forgiveness. I'm not asking you to forget, not even to pretend it didn't hurt. It hurt, destroyed. It changed His life. But now I tell you, looking straight into your eyes, through this screen, you have the power to release this chain. Now, what Jesus showed me was not just for me, it was for you. He told me, take that story back. Show that forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about the soul you want to save, yours. You may have been praying for years for God to bring justice, but today, He is asking you for something else. Let me free you. I went to heaven with a poisoned heart. I came back with Him clean, cured, not because I deserved it, but why Jesus wanted to show me the truth. And now, I pass this truth on to you. Don't hide it. Don't swallow this secret. Kante, forgive, let go. Why forgiveness is not the end. This is the beginning. And when you finally say the words that seem impossible, I forgive you, you will feel it. You will know. You are free. If you enjoyed this beautiful spiritual testimony, please leave a like, comment, share your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.